Jake Daniels is a talented aircraft mechanic from a small airport, whose measured life is filled with the smell of machine oil, the sound of wrenches, and dreams of something bigger, but limited by the reality of a provincial town in Arizona. When a luxurious private jet worth $65 million makes an emergency landing on his runway, and its owner, powerful and successful businesswoman Sophia Reeves, unexpectedly returns to personally thank him for the flawless repair, their worlds collide in the most unpredictable way. What begins as a chance encounter between two people from completely different worlds transforms into a profound story about how even the most calculating hearts can learn to fly when they find the right co-pilot for life's journey. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free, and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. The sickening lurch of the Gulfstream G650 sent Sophia Reeves's laptop sliding across the polished oak conference table. Her coffee cup toppled, spilling dark liquid onto the pristine cabin carpet. The aircraft banked sharply to the right, then shuddered violently. "Ms. Reeves, we have a situation." The pilot's voice, usually smooth and professional, now carried an edge of tension that sent a chill through her spine. "We've lost hydraulic pressure in our primary system. I'm diverting to the nearest airfield." Sophia gripped the armrests of her leather seat, her knuckles whitening. At 34, she had built Rivatech into a multi-billion-dollar empire through calculation and control. Now, 30,000 feet above the Arizona desert, control was the one thing she didn't have. "How serious is it?" she demanded, keeping her voice level despite the fear crawling up her throat. "Serious enough that we need to get on the ground." The pilot paused. "Now." Through the window, the endless expanse of desert stretched beneath them, punctuated by rocky outcrops and the occasional ribbon of highway. The sun was merciless, turning the landscape into a shimmering mirage. "Desert Valley Airfield is 12 minutes out," the co-pilot announced. "It's small, but they have the runway length we need." Sophia closed her eyes, mentally calculating the cost of this delay. The Tokyo meeting couldn't be rescheduled. Billions in potential investment hung in the balance. Her company's future, her future, depended on her being there. "Ms. Reeves, you'll need to prepare for an emergency landing." The flight attendant materialized beside her, professional but clearly rattled. "Please secure any loose items and assume the brace position when instructed." The next 10 minutes stretched into eternity. Sophia found herself doing something she hadn't done since childhood: praying. The jet descended rapidly, the desert floor rushing up to meet them with alarming speed. When the landing gear touched down, the impact jarred through the aircraft. The pilot fought with the controls, the plane fishtailing across the runway before finally coming to a stop. In the sudden silence, Sophia could hear only her heartbeat thundering in her ears. They were alive. But as she looked out at the tiny, dusty airfield with its single runway and cluster of corrugated metal buildings, she knew her problems were far from over. Jake Daniels wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag that had seen better days and squinted against the relentless Arizona sun. At 36, his face was weathered from years spent under that same sun, with laugh lines around his eyes that appeared even when he wasn't smiling. His dark hair was perpetually tousled, and today, like most days, he wore a faded blue work shirt with Jake embroidered on the pocket. The ancient Bell 47 helicopter in front of him had been giving him trouble all morning. Its owner, a local rancher who used it to monitor his cattle, couldn't afford anything newer, but Jake had promised to keep it flying. He always kept his promises, even when they cost him more than they paid. The sound of approaching jet engines pulled his attention skyward. Not unusual. Private planes stopped at Desert Valley occasionally. But this engine didn't sound right. The labored whine told Jake's experienced ear that something was wrong. The sleek white Gulfstream came into view, descending too rapidly, its approach angle steeper than normal. Jake dropped his wrench and started running before his mind fully processed what he was seeing. "Tony!" he shouted to his helper, a 19-year-old who dreamed of becoming a pilot someday. "Get the fire truck ready." By the time Jake reached the runway's edge, the jet was down, skidding and weaving. He watched in professional admiration as the pilot somehow kept the aircraft on the tarmac. When it finally stopped, Jake let out the breath he'd been holding. The small airport sprang to life around him. The manager, Bill Henderson, was already calling for assistance on his radio. The fueling truck pulled away from a Cessna, its driver heading toward the emergency vehicle shed. Jake jogged across the tarmac, arriving as the Gulfstream's door opened and stairs extended down. A flight attendant emerged first, looking remarkably composed given the circumstances. Behind her, a woman appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the cabin interior. Even from a distance, Jake could tell she wasn't an ordinary passenger. She descended the stairs with deliberate grace, surveying her surroundings with obvious displeasure. She wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Jake's annual rent. Her dark hair pulled back in a severe knot at the nape of her neck. "Who's in charge here?" she demanded, her voice carrying across the tarmac. Bill hurried forward. "Ma'am, I'm Bill Henderson, airport manager. Are you all right? Anyone injured?" "We're fine." She dismissed his concern with a wave. "I need a mechanic, the best you have, and I need a car and a secure place to make calls." Jake stepped forward, drawn by professional interest more than anything else. "What's the problem with the aircraft, ma'am?" Her gaze shifted to him, taking in his oil-stained clothes and work boots with a quick, assessing glance. Something flickered in her expression. Dismissal, Jake thought, before she turned back to Bill. "My pilot says it's hydraulic. Primary system failure." She checked her watch, a slender platinum piece that probably cost as much as one of the small planes dotting the airfield. "I have a meeting in Tokyo that cannot be delayed. I need this fixed. Immediately!" Jake moved past her and approached the pilot, who was now descending the stairs. The two men spoke in the technical shorthand of those who understand aircraft, hydraulics, and the complicated marriage between them. "Complete loss of pressure," the pilot explained, gesturing toward the underbelly of the jet. Warning light came on about 50 miles back, then pressure dropped to 0. "Backup system engaged, but protocol is to land immediately." Jake nodded, his mind already working through the possible causes. "Smart move. Mind if I take a look?" The pilot seemed relieved. "Be my guest." As Jake climbed into the aircraft and made his way to the cockpit, he could feel the woman's gaze burning into his back. He ignored it. Aircraft didn't care about expensive suits or platinum watches. They were honest machines. Complex, yes, but ultimately fixable if you understood them well enough. And Jake understood them very well indeed. 3 hours later, Sophia paced the small room that passed for a VIP lounge at Desert Valley Airfield. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her tone clipped and professional despite the storm raging inside her. "Yes, Mr. Tanaka, I understand completely." She paused, listening to the Japanese investor's thinly veiled disappointment. "I assure you, this is merely a technical delay. I've arranged for another aircraft, but it won't arrive until tomorrow morning." She checked her watch again, a nervous habit she'd developed during her rise from community college student to tech industry titan. Time was slipping away, and with it, possibly the deal that would cement Rivatech's position as a global leader in renewable energy storage. "I'm prepared to offer an additional 2% equity as compensation for this inconvenience," she said, the words bitter in her mouth. Each percentage point represented millions, but losing the deal altogether would cost billions. There was a pause on the line. Then, "We will wait until tomorrow afternoon, Ms. Reeves. No later." Relief washed through her, quickly followed by renewed determination. "Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. You won't regret it." As she ended the call, a knock sounded at the door. Bill Henderson entered, followed by the mechanic she'd dismissed earlier. Up close, she noticed things she'd missed in her initial panic, the intelligence in his blue eyes, the confident set of his shoulders beneath the stained work shirt, the capable hands that now held a clipboard. "Ms. Reeves, this is Jake Daniels. He's the best mechanic in 3 counties. Jake gave a nod that wasn't quite deferential. "Ma'am, have you identified the problem?" Sophia demanded, all business. "Yes." Jake handed her the clipboard. "You've got a ruptured hydraulic line near the tail assembly. Pressure built up and blew out a section about 8 inches long." Sophia glanced at the technical diagram, understanding enough to grasp the severity. "Can it be fixed?" "Yes," Jake said, then added, "but not quickly. That specific line isn't something we stock here. Nearest place that might have it is Phoenix. But even then, order it. Whatever it costs." Sophia cut him off. "I've arranged for another aircraft to pick me up tomorrow morning, but I need this jet operational as soon as possible." Jake's expression remained neutral. "It's not just about the parts, Ms. Reeves. This is a complex system. Once we replace the line, we'll need to flush the entire hydraulic system, refill it, bleed the lines, and run multiple tests. This isn't like changing a tire." Something in his tone, the calm expertise, the lack of either intimidation or condescension, made Sophia really look at him for the first time. Despite his grease-stained appearance, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "How long?" she asked, moderating her tone slightly. Jake considered. "If we can get the parts by tomorrow, 3 days, maybe 2 if everything goes perfectly." 2 days, Sophia decided. "I'll pay whatever premium is necessary. My assistant will provide you with the necessary authorizations for expenses." She expected him to look excited at the prospect of what would undoubtedly be a hefty payday for a small operation like this. Instead, he simply nodded. "I'll do my best," he said. "But I won't cut corners on safety, no matter what you're paying." Their eyes met, a brief clash of wills. Sophia was used to people bending to her demands, especially when money was involved. This man's calm refusal to promise what he might not be able to deliver was unexpected. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Her assistant, calling about the replacement aircraft. "I need to take this," she said dismissively. Jake nodded and turned to go, but paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Ms. Reeves, your pilot did a hell of a job getting you down safely. You were lucky." After he left, Sophia found herself staring at the closed door. Luck had nothing to do with her success. She'd fought and clawed her way to the top through intelligence and determination. But as she remembered the sickening lurch of the aircraft, the helpless feeling as the ground rushed up to meet them, perhaps today, just today, luck had played its part. She turned back to the window, watching as Jake walked across the tarmac toward her crippled jet, his stride purposeful. For reasons she couldn't quite articulate, she felt certain that if anyone could fix her aircraft in time, it would be him. Little did Sophia know that this emergency landing would change far more than just her travel plans. It would alter the very course of her carefully plotted life. The Desert Valley Motel had seen better days, probably sometime during the Nixon administration. Sophia eyed the faded turquoise exterior with its flickering neon vacancy sign and fought back a sigh. Her assistant had apologetically informed her that it was the only accommodation within 20 miles. After checking in with a sleepy-eyed clerk who seemed more interested in his television show than in her platinum credit card, Sophia wheeled her Italian leather suitcase to room 14. The key, an actual metal key, not a key card, stuck in the lock. When she finally pushed the door open, she was greeted by the scent of industrial-strength air freshener barely masking decades of cigarette smoke. "Perfect," she muttered, setting her laptop case on the small desk. "Absolutely perfect." Her phone rang, her assistant again, with news about the replacement aircraft. "What do you mean, delayed?" Sophia paced the small room, her heels clicking against the worn linoleum. "I have less than 24 hours to get to Tokyo." "I'm sorry, Ms. Reeves." The jet we chartered hit a mechanical issue in Dallas. They're sending another, but it won't arrive until tomorrow afternoon." Sophia closed her eyes, willing herself not to scream. "That's not acceptable, Matthew. Tanaka will back out if I'm not there by tomorrow night." "I've been calling every charter service in the Southwest," her assistant assured her. "There's nothing available on such short notice, not that can make the Pacific crossing." After ending the call, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, which sagged alarmingly beneath her weight. For the first time in years, she felt something dangerously close to helplessness. Her carefully controlled world was unraveling, and there was nothing she could do about it. A knock at the door startled her. When she opened it, Jake Daniels stood there, looking surprisingly fresh, considering he'd been working on her jet for the past several hours. "Sorry to bother you, Ms. Reeves," he said, holding up a tablet. "Need your signature on these parts requisitions. Special couriers waiting to head to Phoenix." Sophia took the tablet, scanning the list of parts and their prices. "These seem expensive," Jake shrugged. "That's what happens when you need Gulfstream parts yesterday. The courier fee alone is more than I make in a week." Something in his tone made her look up. There was no resentment in his expression, just a matter-of-fact acknowledgement of their different worlds. "Is that a problem?" she asked. "Not for me." A hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I'm not the one paying." Despite herself, Sophia felt an answering smile threatening. She fought it back. "Will these parts fix the issue?" "They'll replace what's broken," Jake said. "Whether that fixes the underlying issue." He shrugged again. "We'll see." Sophia handed back the tablet. "Your confidence is overwhelming. Would you prefer I promised what I can't deliver?" She studied him for a moment, struck again by his directness. In her world, people promised impossible things all the time. Delivery dates that couldn't be met, features that couldn't be built, returns that couldn't be achieved. "No," she admitted. "I wouldn't." An awkward silence fell between them, broken when Jake's stomach gave an audible growl. He looked embarrassed. "Been working straight through," he explained. "Was heading to grab dinner when Bill asked me to get your signature." "Oh." Sophia realized suddenly that she hadn't eaten either. The thought of sitting alone in this depressing motel room, ordering whatever passed for room service here, was deeply unappealing. Before she could think better of it, she asked, "Any recommendations?" "For dinner, I mean." Jake looked surprised. "Around here? Rose's Diner is about the only option unless you want to drive 40 minutes to Flagstaff." "Is it good?" Sophia couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten at a diner. "Best green chili burger in 3 counties," Jake said with conviction. "And the pie." He kissed his fingertips in an exaggerated gesture. "Homemade." Sophia hesitated only briefly. "Would you mind if I joined you? I have some questions about the repair timeline." If he was surprised by her request, Jake hit it well. "Sure, I'm driving, though. The walk would ruin those shoes." He nodded toward her Louboutins. 20 minutes later, Sophia found herself in the passenger seat of Jake's ancient Ford pickup truck, holding on as they bounced down a country road. The truck's interior was surprisingly clean, though the upholstery was worn in places. A small photo was tucked into the sun visor, a smiling woman with a young boy. "Your family?" Sophia asked, trying to ignore the uncomfortable squeeze in her chest. Jake glanced at the photo. "My sister and nephew. They live in Phoenix." "Not married, then?" The question popped out before she could stop it. Jake gave her a quick, unreadable look. "No. Was once. Didn't take." He turned into a gravel parking lot in front of a small roadside building with roses in red neon above the door. "You?" "No." Sophia didn't elaborate. Her one serious relationship had ended 3 years ago when her then-fiancé had delivered an ultimatum. The company or him. It hadn't been a difficult choice. Rose's Diner looked like it had been plucked from a movie set. Red vinyl booths, chrome accents, a jukebox in the corner playing Johnny Cash. A heavy-set woman with flaming red hair piled atop her head approached as they entered. "Jake Daniels!" she exclaimed, enveloping him in a hug that threatened to crack ribs. "Where have you been hiding, handsome?" "Working, Rose. You know how it is." Jake returned the hug with obvious affection. Rose turned her attention to Sophia, her eyes widening slightly at the designer suit. "And who's your friend?" "Sophia Reeves," Jake said. "Her jet made an emergency landing." "I'm fixing it." Rose's eyebrows shot up. "A jet? Honey, you've moved up in the world." She grabbed 2 menus. "Come on, I'll give you my best booth." As they slid into the booth, Sophia noticed several patrons glancing their way with undisguised curiosity. She was used to attention. Her face had been on the cover of Forbes, after all. But this felt different. Here, she was being assessed not as Sophia Reeves, CEO, but as the woman with Jake. "Small towns," Jake said, noticing her discomfort. "Everyone knows everyone. And strangers are interesting. And a woman in a $2,000 suit with a mechanic is downright fascinating?" Sophia guessed. Jake laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Got it in one." He opened his menu, though Sophia suspected he knew it by heart. "Trust me on the green chili burger. Life-changing." Sophia hadn't had a burger in years. Her nutritionist would have a fit. "I'll try it," she decided. "When in Rome." "Smart woman," Jake signaled to the waitress. "2 green chili specials, Margie. And 2 iced teas." Rose appeared moments later with their drinks, setting them down with a wink at Jake. "On the house, handsome. You bring pretty customers more often." After she left, Sophia stirred her tea. "You're popular here." Fixed Rose's refrigeration system when the repairman from Flagstaff wanted to charge her triple because it was a weekend. Jake shrugged. "People remember when you help them out." It was such a simple thing, but it struck Sophia forcefully. In her world, transactions were just that. Business arrangements with clear terms. The idea of building goodwill through small kindnesses was almost foreign. "So," Jake said, leaning back against the vinyl booth. "You run a company?" Sophia nodded. "Rivatech. We're developing next-generation energy storage solutions." "Batteries?" Jake asked. "A bit more sophisticated than that." Sophia found herself explaining the basics of their quantum dot technology, surprised when Jake asked intelligent questions about energy density and discharge rates. "You know a lot about electrical engineering for a mechanic," she said. "Aircraft systems are complicated," Jake replied. "Can't fix what you don't understand." Their food arrived. Massive burgers on toasted brioche buns, green chilies and cheese oozing from the sides, accompanied by hand-cut fries. Sophia regarded hers with a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. "Trick is to commit," Jake advised, picking up his burger with both hands. "No half measures." Sophia followed his lead, taking a bite that immediately sent flavors exploding across her palate. The richness of the beef, the smoky heat of the chilies, the tang of sharp cheddar. "Oh my God!" she mumbled around the mouthful, propriety forgotten. Jake grinned. "Told you." For the next few minutes, they ate in appreciative silence. Sophia couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed a meal so thoroughly. Her usual dinners were business affairs at expensive restaurants, where the food, however exquisite, was secondary to the deals being discussed. "So," she said finally, wiping her fingers on a napkin, "the jet, you really think you can fix it in 2 days?" Jake considered. "If the parts arrive tomorrow, as promised, and if there's no hidden damage." "Yes, but those are big ifs." "I need to be in Tokyo by tomorrow night," Sophia said. "The replacement aircraft is delayed until tomorrow afternoon. Even if everything goes perfectly, I'll barely make it." Jake studied her. Must be an important meeting. Life or death? At his raised eyebrow, she added, "For the company, at least, we need this investment to scale production." "And it has to be you? No one else can go?" Sophia shook her head. Tanaka wants to meet the CEO. He's old-school Japanese business. Relationships matter more than term sheets. Jake nodded slowly. I might have an idea. Let me make a call. He slid out of the booth, stepping outside with his phone. Through the window, Sophia watched him pacing, gesturing occasionally as he spoke. The setting sun cast a golden glow over him, highlighting the strong line of his jaw, the breadth of his shoulders under the simple work shirt. Something stirred in her that she hadn't felt in a long time. A flutter of awareness that had nothing to do with business. Jake returned, sliding back into the booth with a satisfied expression. What? Sophia asked. I might have found you a plane. He held up a hand before she could speak. Not a jet. Nothing fancy, but something that can get you to Los Angeles tonight, where you can catch the midnight flight to Tokyo. Sophia stared at him. How did you… Friend of mine owns a charter service out of Flagstaff. Small operation, mostly tourist flights over the Grand Canyon. But he has a King Air that can make LA in 3 hours. Jake grinned. Told him I'd do his annual inspections free for the next year if he'd help you out. You'd do that? For a stranger? Sophia couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Something shifted in Jake's expression. Maybe you're not exactly a stranger anymore? Their eyes held for a moment too long to be casual. Sophia felt heat rising to her cheeks and looked away first. Besides, Jake added, his tone lightening, now you'll owe me. Could be useful to have a billionaire CEO in my debt? Sophia laughed, the sound surprising her with its genuineness. I suppose it could, though I'm only a millionaire, technically. The company's worth billions. Oh, well, in that case… Jake's eyes danced with humor. Rose appeared with 2 slices of pie. Golden crusted apple with vanilla ice cream melting on top. Dessert, she announced. Also on the house. Jake, honey, your usual mechanic magic with my freezer is still holding up beautifully. As they ate the pie, which was, as promised, extraordinary, Sophia felt a strange reluctance growing in her. The solution Jake had offered was perfect. Exactly what she needed. So why did the thought of leaving immediately fill her with a vague disappointment? I can drive you to Flagstaff, Jake said, misreading her silence as concern. Pete's got the plane fueled and ready. You could be in LA by 9, plenty of time for the midnight flight. That's… Sophia searched for the right word. Incredibly kind of you. Jake shrugged again, that now familiar gesture that dismissed praise. Just paying it forward. Someone helped me out once when I was stranded. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from her assistant, reminding her of conference calls she needed to make before the Tokyo meeting. Reality intruded, as it always did. I should get my things from the motel, she said. Jake nodded, signaling for the check. When it came, he reached for it, but Sophia was faster. Please, she said. It's the least I can do. Jake hesitated, then nodded. As Sophia calculated the tip, 300%, a gesture that would have felt ostentatious with anyone else, but somehow seemed right with Jake. She found herself wondering if their paths would ever cross again after tonight. For reasons she couldn't quite articulate, she hoped they would. The drive to Flagstaff was filled with a comfortable silence, punctuated by sporadic conversation. Jake pointed out landmarks hidden in the gathering darkness, ancient rock formations, a hidden canyon, the distant lights of a Navajo reservation. Sophia found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did, the constant tension of running a company temporarily easing from her shoulders. There was something soothing about Jake's presence, a steadiness that made her feel, irrationally, that things would be okay. At the small airfield outside Flagstaff, a stocky man with a weather-beaten face greeted them warmly. "Jake, you old son of a gun!" He clapped Jake on the shoulder before turning to Sophia with an appraising look. "Ma'am, Pete Wilkins. Hear you need to get to LA in a hurry." "Yes," Sophia extended her hand. "I understand I have you to thank for the assistance." Pete waved away her thanks. "Any friend of Jake's? Besides, He's the best damn mechanic west of the Mississippi. Worth a favor or two." He gestured toward a small, twin-engine aircraft. "She's all fueled up and ready to go. Not as fancy as your Gulfstream, but she'll get you there." As Jake helped transfer her luggage to the plane, Sophia found herself searching for the right words. "Thank you" seemed inadequate for what he'd done. "Jake," she began, then faltered. He turned to her, his expression open and unguarded in the floodlights of the airfield. "Yeah? I don't know how to repay you for this." Jake smiled, a slow, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Maybe come back for another green chili burger sometime." Something fluttered in Sophia's chest. "Maybe I will." They stood for a moment, the night air cool around them, the stars impossibly bright away from city lights. In another life, Sophia thought, this might be the moment where… "Ma'am?" Pete called from the plane. "We're ready when you are." The moment broke. Jake stepped back, his expression shifting to something more neutral. "Safe travels, Ms. Reeves." "Sophia," she corrected. "After saving my career, I think you've earned first-name privileges." His smile returned. "Safe travels, Sophia." As the plane taxied down the runway, Sophia looked back through the small window. Jake stood watching, a solitary figure with his hands in his pockets. For a brief, irrational moment, she considered telling Pete to stop, to turn around. Then the plane lifted off, and Desert Valley and Jake Daniels fell away beneath her. But as she settled in for the flight to Los Angeles, Sophia found herself unable to focus on the conference calls and preparations for Tokyo. Instead, her mind kept returning to a pair of steady blue eyes, a quiet confidence, and the inexplicable feeling that something important had just begun. Tokyo's neon skyline blurred through the rain-streaked windows of Sophia's hotel room. The Tanaka deal was done, signed, sealed, and celebrated with expensive sake. She should have been elated. Instead, she felt oddly hollow. "Ms. Reeves?" Her assistant, Matthew, stood in the doorway. "The board is thrilled with the Tanaka agreement. They've called an emergency meeting to discuss accelerating production timelines." Sophia nodded absently. "When?" "Tomorrow morning in San Francisco. The company jet is standing by whenever you're ready." Her company jet. The Gulfstream that had malfunctioned over Arizona. The aircraft that had led her to Jake Daniels. "Has there been any update on the repairs?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. Matthew consulted his tablet. "Yes, actually. Repairs were completed ahead of schedule. The aircraft is waiting at Desert Valley Airfield until we send a pilot to retrieve it." "Cancel the standby jet," Sophia said suddenly. "I'll take a commercial flight to Arizona and pick up the Gulfstream myself." The Arizona desert shimmered in the late afternoon heat as Sophia's rental car approached Desert Valley Airfield. She'd changed at the Phoenix airport, swapping her business attire for something more casual. Designer jeans, a simple blouse, and flat shoes. Her hair, usually pulled back severely, fell in loose waves around her shoulders. She spotted Jake immediately. Tall figure in faded jeans and a blue work shirt, leaning against the open door of a hangar. As she parked and stepped out, he pushed away from the building and walked toward her, a smile spreading across his face that made her heart perform an undignified little flip. "Right on time," he said, reaching for her overnight bag. "As always." "Some stereotypes exist for a reason," Sophia replied, stretching up to kiss him briefly. "CEOs are punctual." "And mechanics are perpetually covered in grease?" Jake asked, holding up his surprisingly clean hands. Sophia laughed. "You're breaking the mold." "Special occasion." He took her hand, leading her toward the hangar. "Come meet our ride for tomorrow." Inside, a sleek single-engine Cirrus awaited, its white and blue paint gleaming in the late afternoon sun. "Yours?" Sophia asked, surprised. "Not exactly." Jake's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Let's call it a loaner. Client who's on a 6-month assignment overseas. I'm doing the maintenance, keeping her airworthy." He patted the aircraft's nose. In exchange, I get borrowing privileges. Convenient arrangement. I thought so. Jake opened the passenger door, revealing a leather interior. She's got all the latest avionics, oxygen system for higher altitudes, the works. We'll get a spectacular view of the canyon tomorrow. They had dinner at Rose's, of course. The diner owner enveloped Sophia in a hug, almost as enthusiastic as the one she gave Jake, acting as though the CEO were a long-lost relative rather than a casual customer. As they ate, Sophia found the tension of the past weeks, the endless meetings, the production challenges, the constant pressure to execute flawlessly, gradually melting away. Here, in this small-town diner with checkered tablecloths and a jukebox playing Patsy Cline, she wasn't Sophia Reeves, CEO. She was just Sophia, enjoying a burger with her boyfriend. Partner? They hadn't exactly defined things yet. You're thinking very loudly, Jake observed, dipping a fry in ketchup. Sophia blinked. Sorry. Occupational hazard. Work stuff or other stuff? Jake asked, studying her face. Neither. Both. Sophia hesitated. What would you call this? Us, I mean. Jake's eyebrows lifted slightly, but he didn't seem alarmed by the question. What would you like to call it? That's not an answer, Sophia pointed out. No, but it's a valid question. Jake set down his fork, giving her his full attention. I know what this is to me. I'm interested in what it is to you. Sophia felt oddly vulnerable under his steady gaze. In business, she never hesitated. Decisions were made confidently, articulated clearly. But this was different territory entirely. It's important, she said finally. More important than I expected. Than I planned for? Jake's expression softened. Same here. Later, at Jake's small house on the edge of town, a surprisingly charming craftsman bungalow with comfortable furnishings, Sophia found herself standing in his living room, taking in the details. Books lined shelves made of reclaimed wood. A guitar leaned in one corner, a chess set occupied a side table, and photographs adorned the walls. Sophia moved closer to examine them. Jake as a teenager, standing proudly beside a small airplane. Jake with an older man, his father, she guessed. Jake and a young woman holding a toddler. Your family? She asked. Jake nodded. Most of them. Dad passed 5 years ago. Cancer. Mom left when I was 10. My sister Maddie lives in Phoenix with her son, Ethan. Sophia studied the images, struck by the visual evidence of Jake's connections. Her own apartment held no such personal touches, no family photos, no mementos of relationships past or present. Your home is lovely, she said, meaning it. Jake's eyes kindled. He closed the distance between them, his hands settling at her waist. I'm glad you're here. Sophia leaned into him, letting the comfort of his solid presence wash over her. Me too. Dawn broke over San Francisco, painting the fog with pale gold. Sophia lay awake, watching the shifting light play across the ceiling. Beside her, Jake slept soundly, one arm flung across her waist. Something tightened in Sophia's chest, an emotion so foreign she struggled to name it. Not just desire, though, that remained. Not just affection, though that too warmed her. Something more dangerous, more volatile. Something that felt strangely like belonging. The thought sent a flutter of panic through her. Sophia Reeves didn't belong to anyone or anything except her vision, her company, her goal. She had built her life around that singular focus, eliminating distractions, compartmentalizing emotions, scheduling even her rare moments of leisure with ruthless efficiency. There was no room in that carefully constructed life for a man who lived in the desert, fixed planes with his hands, and kissed like he had all the time in the world. Was there? Jake stirred beside her, his eyes opening slowly. For a moment, confusion clouded his features. Then recognition dawned, followed by a smile that made Sophia's heart stutter in her chest. Morning, he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. Morning, she replied, suddenly shy despite the intimacy they'd shared. Jake propped himself up on one elbow, studying her face. "You look worried. Having regrets already?" "No," Sophia said quickly. "No regrets." "But?" Jake prompted. Sophia sighed. "But I have a board meeting in 3 hours. And after that, I'm flying to Boston to meet with our manufacturing team. Then Washington for regulatory discussions. Then back to Tokyo to finalize details with Tanaka." "Sounds like a busy month," Jake said neutrally. "A busy year," Sophia corrected. "Maybe 2. This deal changes everything for Rivatech. The next 18 months will determine whether we succeed or fail." Understanding dawned in Jake's eyes. "And there's no room for distractions." "I didn't say that," Sophia protested, though they both knew that's exactly what she meant. Jake sat up fully. "Sophia, I get it. I'm not asking for promises or commitments you're not ready to make." Sophia leaned into his touch, closing her eyes briefly. "I don't know how to do this, Jake. I don't know how to fit, whatever this is, into my life." "Maybe you don't have to figure it all out right now," Jake suggested. "Maybe we just take it one day at a time. See where it leads." "I'm not good at uncertainty," Sophia admitted. "I like plans, structures, clear paths forward." Jake laughed softly. "I've noticed." The sound of his laughter broke something open in Sophia's chest. She found herself laughing too, then leaning forward to kiss him. When they broke apart, Jake's expression had turned serious. "Here's what I know, Sophia. I like you. The real you. Not just the CEO version. I'd like to see where this goes, if you would. But I'm not going to pressure you or make demands your life can't accommodate." "I'd like that too," she said finally. "To see where this goes. Though I can't promise I'll be any good at it." Jake's smile returned, warming his blue eyes. "I'm willing to risk it if you are." As the morning light strengthened, painting the room in shades of gold, Sophia Reeves, the quantum queen who never took risks without calculating every variable, took the biggest risk of all. She let herself hope, and that concludes the quarterly projections. Sophia clicked to the final slide of her presentation, surveying the faces around the conference table. "Any questions?" The board members exchanged glances, a mixture of impressed and intimidated. 3 months into the Tanaka partnership, Rivatech was exceeding even the most optimistic timelines. "I think we're all satisfied with the progress, Ms. Reeves," said Harold Winston, the chairman of the board. "More than satisfied, in fact." After the meeting, Sophia sat in her office, holding her personal phone. Not the company device that rarely stopped buzzing, but the private line known only to a select few. Jake answered on the second ring. "There she is." His voice immediately unwound something tight in Sophia's chest. The elusive CEO emerges from the boardroom. "Just barely," Sophia replied, a smile spreading across her face. "How's the desert today? Hot? Dusty? The usual." She could hear the smile in his voice. "How'd the board meeting go?" "They're happy. I'm happy." Sophia swiveled her chair to face the windows overlooking San Francisco Bay. "Everything's on track." "Good. That's good." A pause. "So, does that mean you might actually take a day off sometime this century?" Sophia laughed. "I might be persuaded." "Why? Did you have something in mind?" "As a matter of fact, I did." Jake's tone shifted slightly, a hint of nervousness creeping in. "Remember when you said you'd never been to the Grand Canyon?" "I remember." "Well, I was thinking. It's only a 90-minute flight from here in a small plane. Perfect day trip, and I happen to know a pretty good pilot." "When were you thinking?" she asked, already pulling up her calendar. "This Sunday. I know it's short notice, but the weather's supposed to be perfect, and He hesitated. "I miss you." 3 simple words, but they landed with unexpected weight. Sophia stared at her calendar. Sunday was marked with 3 conference calls and preparation time for Monday's investor meeting. "Sunday sounds perfect," she heard herself say. "I'll fly in Saturday night." Desert Valley Airfield looked exactly the same as it had 3 months ago. Sophia thought, as her rental car crunched over the gravel. She spotted Jake immediately. Tall figure in faded jeans and a blue work shirt, leaning against the open door of a hangar. "Right on time," he said, reaching for her overnight bag. "As always." "Some stereotypes exist for a reason," Sophia replied, stretching up to kiss him briefly. "CEOs are punctual." They had dinner at Rose's, of course. The diner owner enveloped Sophia in a hug almost as enthusiastic as the one she gave Jake, acting as though the CEO were a long-lost relative rather than a casual customer. Later, at Jake's house, Sophia found herself asking the question that had been circling her mind since their night in San Francisco. "Do you ever think about the future?" The question emerged unbidden, surprising even Sophia. Jake's eyes opened, finding hers in the dim light. "Sometimes." "Why?" Sophia hesitated. "I've spent my entire adult life focused on one future, Revatech, changing the energy landscape, fulfilling my father's legacy. I never really considered alternatives." Jake was fully awake now, his attention sharpening. "And now?" "Now I find myself thinking about other things." Sophia struggled to articulate feelings she'd barely acknowledged to herself. Things that weren't part of the plan. "Like?" Sophia looked away, suddenly vulnerable. "Like whether a relationship can survive when people live in different worlds. Different cities. Different realities." Jake was quiet for a long moment, his hand continuing its gentle path up and down her spine. "I think," he said finally, "that depends on the people, and how much those different worlds matter to them." The Grand Canyon stretched before them, a vast chasm of layered red rock catching the morning light. Sophia stood at the edge, momentarily speechless at the sheer scale of it. "Worth the trip?" Jake asked, coming to stand beside her. "It's—" Sophia searched for adequate words and found none. "It's incredible." Jake smiled, clearly pleased by her reaction. "Different when you see it like this, isn't it? Most tourists get the crowded viewpoints, but out here—" He gestured to the isolated promontory where they stood, accessed by the brief hiking trail from where they'd landed the Cirrus. "How did you find this spot?" Sophia asked. "My dad brought me here when I got my pilot's license," Jake explained. "Said every pilot should see the canyon from both air and ground to truly appreciate it." Sophia tried to imagine it. Jake and his father, sleeping under the desert stars, surrounded by this magnificent desolation. So different from her own childhood of academic pressure and achievement metrics. "Your father sounds like a wise man," she said. "He was." Jake's expression turned reflective. "Taught me everything important. How to fix engines, how to treat people, how to find beauty in unexpected places." He glanced at Sophia with a small smile. "He would have liked you." "Really?" Sophia found herself genuinely curious. "Even though I'm a corporate shark?" Jake laughed. He'd have seen past that, to the woman who rearranged her insane schedule just to see a big hole in the ground. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "The woman I'm crazy about." The casual declaration sent a jolt through Sophia's system, equal parts terror and exhilaration. They hadn't used words like that before. Before she could respond, Jake tugged her hand gently. "Come on, there's something else I want to show you." He led her along a narrow trail that hugged the canyon rim, occasionally pointing out geological features or wildlife. After about 20 minutes, the trail dipped suddenly, revealing a small hidden alcove in the canyon wall. Inside, a natural spring bubbled from the rock, creating a tiny oasis of greenery in the arid landscape. Jake spread a blanket on a smooth section of ground and pulled a small cooler from his backpack. "Breakfast with a view," he announced, unpacking fresh fruit, pastries, and a thermos of coffee. As they ate, Sophia found herself studying Jake. The easy competence in his movements, the genuine appreciation he showed for their surroundings, the way sunlight caught the gold flecks in his blue eyes. Something shifted in her chest, a warm certainty settling where doubt had lingered. "Jake? Hmm?" He looked up from slicing an apple. "I'm crazy about you too," Sophia said softly. In case that wasn't clear. The smile that spread across his face rivaled the sunrise over the canyon. He set aside the knife and apple, moving to sit beside her on the blanket. "I was hoping you might be," he murmured, leaning in to kiss her. After a moment, Jake reached into his pocket. He pulled out not a ring box, which had flashed briefly through Sophia's mind, but a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" she asked as he handed it to her. "Take a look," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Sophia unfolded the paper to find a real estate listing, a commercial property in San Francisco, specifically a former airplane hangar at a small municipal airport on the city's outskirts. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at Jake in confusion. Jake took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about expansion. Desert Valley is home, but there's only so much business out here. That property would be perfect for a high-end aircraft maintenance operation, specializing in corporate jets." Understanding dawned slowly. "You're thinking of opening a business in San Francisco?" Jake nodded. "It's just an idea right now, but a good one, I think. There's a real market opportunity for a premium service that understands both the mechanical needs and the client experience." Sophia studied him, both surprised and impressed by the business acumen underlying the proposal. "And this has nothing to do with the fact that my primary residence is in San Francisco?" Jake met her gaze directly. "I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a factor. But it's not the only one." He gestured toward the listing. "The numbers make sense. The market's there, and I've been thinking about new challenges anyway." "What about Desert Valley?" Sophia asked. "You've always said it's home." "It is," Jake agreed. "And it would still be. I'm not talking about moving entirely, more like splitting my time. Peterson still needs someone to keep that death trap of his flying." A smile touched his lips. "But I could be in San Francisco 3 or 4 days a week. Every week." The implications hung in the air between them. 3 or 4 days a week. Every week? Not snatched moments and occasional weekends, but a regular, sustained presence in each other's lives. "Jake," Sophia began, emotion making her voice unsteady. "Are you sure? This is a huge change. For both of us." "I'm sure about you," he said simply. "The rest is just logistics." The directness of his statement caught her off guard. In her world of hedged bets and calculated risks, such certainty was rare. "You make it sound so simple," she said. "Maybe it can be," Jake suggested. "Maybe we complicate things by overthinking them." Sophia looked down at the real estate listing, then back at Jake's face. Hopeful, nervous, sincere. 3 months ago, she would have dismissed such a proposal immediately. Too complicated, too messy, too full of variables she couldn't control. Now she found herself nodding slowly. I think we should explore this." The smile that broke across Jake's face was like sunrise. "Yeah?" "Yeah," Sophia confirmed, feeling something expand in her chest. A lightness, a possibility. "I have some contacts in the aviation industry who might be interested in investing in a premium maintenance service." Jake laughed, pulling her into his arms. "Already turning my romantic gesture into a business opportunity." Typical CEO. Sophia smiled against his shoulder. "I contain multitudes." "That you do," Jake murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "That's what I love about you." The word hung in the air between them, neither acknowledged nor retracted. Instead, they held each other in comfortable silence, the vast canyon before them a fitting metaphor for the leap they were contemplating. "Ms. Reeves, they're ready for you." Sophia looked up from her tablet, where she'd been reviewing the quarterly projections one last time. Matthew stood in the doorway of the small conference room, his expression carefully neutral. "How many?" she asked, rising and smoothing her charcoal gray suit. "Full house," Matthew replied, "including the Tanaka representatives and 3 analysts from Goldman." 6 months after the initial Tanaka investment, Rivatech was preparing for its next funding round, a public offering that would value the company at over $15 billion. Today's presentation to financial analysts would set the tone for the IPO roadshow beginning next week. As they walked toward the main conference room, Matthew cleared his throat tentatively. "There was a call from Mr. Daniels while you were in with the legal team. He said it wasn't urgent, but he'd appreciate a call back when you have a moment." A smile touched Sophia's lips, despite her exhaustion. Jake had been in San Francisco for the past week, overseeing renovations on the hangar he'd purchased for his West Coast operation. They'd managed dinner together twice, both times cut short by urgent calls from Sophia's team. "I'll call him after the presentation," she promised, both to Matthew and herself. The next 90 minutes passed in a blur of slides, questions, financial projections, and technology demonstrations. By the time she concluded, even the normally stoic Goldman analysts were leaning forward in their seats, visibly impressed. After the last visitor had departed, Sophia sank into a conference room chair, finally allowing herself to feel the bone-deep exhaustion of the past few days. Matthew appeared silently at her side, removing her empty coffee mug and replacing it with a bottle of water. "You were brilliant," he said simply. "We were brilliant," Sophia corrected, gesturing to include her entire team. "This has been a group effort from the beginning." In the privacy of her office, Sophia pulled out her personal phone and dialed Jake. He answered on the third ring, background noise suggesting he was at the hangar. "Hey, stranger," he said, his voice warm despite the slight static. "How'd the big presentation go?" "Good," Sophia replied, feeling some of her tension dissolve at the sound of his voice. "Really good, actually. Winston thinks we're on track for a strong IPO." "Never doubted it for a second," Jake said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Any chance you might escape the corporate fortress for dinner tonight? I found this little Italian place near the marina." Sophia glanced at her schedule. Executive debrief now, investor calls until 6, preparation for tomorrow's board meeting that would likely stretch late into the evening. "I want to," she began apologetically, "but the timing is brutal. Post-presentation madness." "I figured," Jake said, disappointment evident despite his understanding tone. "No problem. Maybe tomorrow?" Sophia hesitated, wanting desperately to say yes, but knowing tomorrow would be equally chaotic. "Let me see what I can do. I should have a better sense of my schedule after the executive debrief." The executive debrief stretched into dinner, which morphed into an impromptu strategy session for the upcoming roadshow. By the time Sophia left the office, the city lights were reflecting on the bay, and her missed calls from Jake had accumulated to 3. Too late to call now, she thought guiltily, glancing at her watch as her driver navigated through San Francisco's evening traffic. Jake would be up early tomorrow to meet with equipment suppliers, and she had a 7 a.m. conference call with European investors. She sent a quick text instead. "Crazy day. Sorry for going, MIA. Breakfast tomorrow? My treat." His response came almost immediately. "It's a date. 7:30 at Stella's?" Sophia smiled, typing back a confirmation before leaning her head against the cool window of the town car. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual nighttime energy. Restaurants filled with diners, bars spilling laughter onto sidewalks, couples walking hand in hand along the Embarcadero. Normal people living normal lives, Sophia thought, a twinge of something like envy surprising her. When had she last done any of those things without one eye on her phone, one ear listening for the distinctive chime of an urgent email? Her driver pulled up to her building, the doorman rushing forward to open her car door with a respectful nod. "Evening, Ms. Reeves." "Good evening, James," Sophia replied, summoning a tired smile. "Quiet night?" "Indeed, ma'am." He held the door for her, then added, "Though there was a delivery for you earlier, I had it sent up to your apartment." In her apartment, she found a beautiful arrangement of wildflowers on her kitchen counter. Not the typical roses or lilies of professional deliveries, but a riot of desert blooms in sunset hues. The card read simply, "For when you finally make it home. Some Arizona sunshine to brighten your San Francisco night." Something caught in Sophia's throat as she touched one of the delicate petals. How had he known she would need exactly this tonight? Stella's Cafe occupied a sunny corner in North Beach, its blue awnings and window boxes of geraniums providing a cheerful contrast to the surrounding architecture. Jake was already there when Sophia arrived, seated at a table near the window with 2 coffee cups before him. "Right on time," he said, pressing a kiss to her cheek. "Some stereotypes exist for a reason," Sophia replied, echoing their exchange from months ago. As they ate, Jake hesitated, glancing around the busy cafe before meeting her eyes. "I got a call yesterday from Peters Aviation in Phoenix." "The corporate fleet operator?" Sophia knew the company by reputation, a growing regional player in private aviation services. "The same," Jake confirmed. "They're looking to establish a maintenance division. Offered me the position of Director of Maintenance Operations." Sophia blinked, surprised. "That's impressive. Congratulations." "I haven't accepted," Jake clarified. "It's just an offer at this point." "But you're considering it?" Sophia studied his face, trying to read his thoughts. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's a good opportunity. Substantial salary, equity options, benefits package. More resources than I could build on my own, at least initially." "In Phoenix," Sophia added, the implications clear. "In Phoenix," Jake confirmed. "Where my sister and nephew live, where I grew up." A tense silence fell between them. Sophia took a careful sip of her coffee, buying time to process her swirling thoughts. After 6 months of building toward a future where they could be in the same city more often, this development felt like a step backward. "What about the San Francisco operation?" she asked finally. "You've put so much into it already." "I know," Jake said, frustration evident in his voice. "The timing is not great, but the hangar could be sold. Probably at a profit given the improvements we've made." "When do they need your decision?" Sophia asked, her CEO brain taking over where her emotional response felt too raw to express. 2 weeks, Jake replied, after their board meeting. 6 weeks until he might leave for Phoenix. The same timeline as Rivatech's IPO. The universe had a twisted sense of humor, Sophia thought grimly. "We need to talk about this," she said finally. "Not now. I have a call in 20 minutes. But soon." Jake nodded, disappointment evident, but understanding. "Of course." The hangar was illuminated against the night sky, its massive doors open to reveal the bustle of activity inside. Sophia's driver pulled up to the entrance a week later, after her New York trip for the first leg of the IPO roadshow. Inside, the space was barely recognizable from the empty shell Jake had purchased months ago. New workstations lined one wall, specialized equipment occupied designated areas, and the office space at the far end was taking shape with fresh drywall and windows. She found Jake in the back office, sitting at a makeshift desk of plywood on sawhorses, his attention focused on papers spread before him. She knocked softly. Jake looked up, surprise followed by cautious pleasure crossing his face. "Sophia," he stood quickly. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." "I got your package," she said, holding up the model plane he'd sent her, a miniature replica of the Cirrus they'd flown to the Grand Canyon. "It was a nice reminder." Jake smiled, though the expression didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good. That was the idea." An awkward silence fell between them, filled with all the words they hadn't said over the past week. "Jake," Sophia began, then faltered, unsure how to continue. He moved closer. "I've missed you," he said simply. "I've missed you too," she replied, her voice softer than intended. "This week has been awful," Jake supplied with a wry smile. "At least on the communication front." "We need to talk about Phoenix," she said finally, facing the elephant in the room. Jake nodded, moving to close the office door. "We do." With the door shut, the construction noise faded to a distant backdrop. Jake leaned against his desk, arms crossed loosely over his chest. "I haven't decided yet," he said before Sophia could speak. "I wanted to talk to you first. Really talk, not the half conversations we've been having." "What are you thinking?" Sophia asked. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Honestly, I'm torn. The Phoenix offer is significant. More resources, bigger operation, chance to build something from the ground up with corporate backing. Plus, family," Sophia added. "Plus family," Jake agreed. "But," he gestured around the half-finished office, "I've put a lot into this place already. Not just money, but vision. It's mine in a way the Phoenix operation wouldn't be. And then there's us," Jake continued, his gaze meeting hers directly, "which is the complication I keep circling back to." "I'm a complication?" Sophia asked, keeping her tone light despite the serious undertone. Jake's expression softened. "The most beautiful complication I've ever encountered." He reached for her hand. "Sophia, I need to know where we stand. What this is between us, where it's going. Because long-distance relationships are hard enough when both people are fully committed." "Is that what you think this is?" she asked quietly. "Just passing time?" "No," Jake replied immediately. "Not for me. But you've been hard to read lately. More distant. Even before the Phoenix offer came up. The IPO is consuming me," she admitted. "It's the culmination of everything I've worked for. Everything my father worked for." She squeezed his hand. "But that doesn't mean this, us, is just passing time. It's not. Not for me either." Relief flickered across Jake's features, followed by something more complex. "Then what is it? I need to understand what we're doing here, what we're building, or not building, together." "I don't know," she said finally, the honesty painful but necessary. "I know that I care about you, more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time." Jake studied her face, his blue eyes intent. "Sophia, I need to be clear about something. I'm falling in love with you." The simple declaration hung in the air between them. "Actually, that's not right. I have fallen in love with you, and I need to know if there's any chance you might be heading in the same direction." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. They danced around the word for months, maintaining a careful emotional distance even as their lives became increasingly intertwined. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the office door. The hangar manager needed Jake to take an urgent call about the fire suppression system approval. "We're not done with this conversation," Jake said, his expression torn between professional urgency and personal need. "I know," she assured him. "We'll talk when I get back from New York." "Thursday, then," Jake said, more statement than question. "Dinner." "Dinner," Sophia confirmed, offering a smile she hoped conveyed more certainty than she felt. "New York, Chicago, Boston." The IPO roadshow consumed Sophia's next 2 weeks, with only brief text exchanges with Jake between meetings and presentations. Finally, back in San Francisco, she met him at an upscale Italian restaurant in North Beach. "Jake," she began after the waiter had taken their drink orders, "I've been thinking about what you asked, about what we're doing, what we're building together, and about your Phoenix offer." Jake nodded, his expression carefully neutral as he waited for her to continue. "I've spent my entire adult life focused on one goal, making Rivatech successful, bringing my father's vision to reality. There wasn't room for anything else, or at least, that's what I told myself." She took another sip of wine, fortifying herself. "And then my plane broke down in the middle of nowhere, and this incredibly competent, surprisingly charming mechanic walked into my life. And suddenly, there was room. I made room." Jake's expression softened, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "These past 6 months with you have been unexpected," Sophia continued, "in the best possible way. You've shown me parts of myself I'd forgotten existed." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "You asked if there's a chance I might be heading in the same direction as you. The answer is yes. I've fallen in love with you too, Jake." Joy bloomed across Jake's features, his hand tightening around hers. "Sophia, I'm not finished," she said gently. "There's more to this conversation." Jake nodded, though happiness still radiated from him. "The Phoenix offer," Sophia continued, "it's a good opportunity. Great even. And if you decide to take it, I'll support that decision. We'll find a way to make things work between us, even long distance." "But?" Jake prompted, sensing there was more. "But I have a counteroffer," Sophia said, straightening slightly in her chair. "Rivatech is expanding its corporate fleet as we scale operations. 6 jets currently, with plans for 12 by year end. We need a reliable, high-quality maintenance provider who understands both the technical requirements and the corporate culture." Jake's eyebrows rose as he began to understand where she was heading. "I'd like to offer you a contract," Sophia continued. "Exclusive maintenance provider for the Rivatech fleet, with guaranteed minimum annual revenue. Enough to ensure your San Francisco operation is profitable from day one, with room to grow as we expand." Jake sat back slightly, surprise evident in his expression. "Sophia, It's a business decision," she stated firmly. "One I've reviewed with our operations team. The numbers make sense. You'd still be independent, free to take on other clients, grow your business however you see fit. But you'd have the security of a major corporate contract to build from." Jake studied her face. "And the personal aspect? Where does that factor in?" "It doesn't," Sophia said honestly. "Not in the business decision. But in my hope that you'll accept, it factors in completely." She squeezed his hand. "I want you to stay, Jake. Not just for Rivatech, but for me, for us. Because I think what we're building might be the most important project either of us has ever undertaken." Jake was quiet for a moment, processing her words. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Not the polite smile he offered strangers, or even the warm smile he gave friends, but something more intimate, reserved just for her. "You know," he said finally, "most people just say, 'I love you too,' and leave it at that. Only Sophia Reeves would follow up with a business proposal." Sophia laughed, tension breaking. "Is that a yes?" "To which part?" Jake teased, his eyes dancing with humor. "The 'I love you too' or the contract?" "Both," Sophia replied, her heart lighter than it had been in days. Jake lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Yes to both. Definitely. Absolutely yes to both." 1 year later, the Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on the sprawling industrial complex that housed Rivatech's main production facility. Flags bearing the company logo snapped in the desert breeze, and a massive banner across the main building proclaimed, "Rivatech, powering tomorrow, today." Inside the climate-controlled auditorium, Sophia stood at the podium, surveying the crowd of employees, investors, and media representatives gathered for the facility's official opening ceremony. The past year had been a whirlwind. The successful IPO had valued Rivatech at $18 billion, exceeding even the most optimistic projections. Production had ramped up, partnerships had been secured, and the technology that had once existed only in laboratory prototypes was now powering communities across 3 continents. "Today marks not an endpoint, but a beginning," Sophia concluded her speech, her voice carrying confidently through the state-of-the-art sound system. "What we build here will change how the world thinks about energy, not as a limited resource to be conserved, but as an abundant force to be harnessed for the benefit of all humanity. Thank you for being part of this journey." Applause thundered through the auditorium as Sophia stepped back from the podium. Harold Winston approached, shaking her hand with both of his own. "Magnificent, my dear," the board chairman said, beaming with pride. "Absolutely magnificent. Your father would be so proud." Sophia smiled, the mention of her father bringing a familiar bittersweet pang. "Thank you, Harold. That means a lot." As the crowd began to disperse for the facility tour, Sophia scanned the faces, searching for one in particular. She spotted him near the back, tall figure in a well-tailored suit that still looked slightly foreign on his frame. Blue eyes finding hers across the distance. Jake smiled and gave her a subtle thumbs up, mouthing "perfect" as their gazes connected. Sophia felt a now familiar warmth spread through her chest. A year into their relationship, Jake's presence still had the power to center her, to remind her that there was more to life than balance sheets and production quotas. Matthew appeared at her elbow, tablet in hand. "Excellent speech, Ms. Reeves. The media responses are already coming in, unanimously positive. Reuters is calling the facility a monument to American innovation, and Bloomberg describes it as the future of energy production made manifest." "Thank you, Matthew," Sophia replied. "Is the helicopter ready for the aerial tour?" "Waiting on the pad," Matthew confirmed. "The investors are already being escorted there." Sophia nodded. "I'll join them in 5 minutes." As Matthew departed to coordinate with the tour guides, Sophia made her way through the crowd toward Jake. Several people stopped her to offer congratulations or ask questions, each receiving her polite but brief attention before she continued her purposeful path. When she finally reached him, Jake's smile widened. "CEO Reeves," he greeted formally, though his eyes conveyed a much more intimate hello. "Quite an impressive operation you've built here." "Thank you, Mr. Daniels," Sophia replied, matching his public professionalism while privately enjoying their little game. "I believe you had some involvement in the transportation infrastructure." Jake chuckled. "A small contribution. The fleet maintenance facility turned out rather well, if I do say so myself." The dedicated hangar adjacent to the main complex had been Jake's project for the past 6 months, a state-of-the-art maintenance facility for Rivatech's expanded corporate fleet, now numbering 15 aircraft. Jake's company, having established its reputation with the successful San Francisco operation, had grown to include this Nevada location as well. "Rather well indeed," Sophia agreed. "In fact, I was hoping for a personal tour from the designer himself. After the investor obligations are complete, of course." "I think that could be arranged," Jake replied, his tone suggesting the tour might include some non-professional elements, though I heard a rumor about a helicopter inspection that might take priority. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "A helicopter inspection?" Jake nodded, glancing at his watch. "Rivatech's new executive transport. Just arrived yesterday. Someone should probably make sure it's up to standard before the CEO uses it." "How convenient that I happen to know an excellent aircraft inspector," Sophia said, her lips curving into a smile. "Very convenient," Jake agreed. "I'm told he's free this evening." Sophia was about to respond when Matthew reappeared, his expression apologetic. "Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Reeves, but the investors are waiting at the helipad." "Of course," Sophia said, slipping back into CEO mode. "I'll be right there." She turned back to Jake. "Duty calls." "Always does," he replied without rancor. "I'll see you tonight?" Sophia nodded. "Our place. 8 o'clock. I'll bring dinner." As Sophia followed Matthew toward the waiting helicopter, she reflected on the subtle shift in her priorities over the past year. Rivatech remained her professional focus. The company her father had envisioned and she had built was changing the world in ways he'd only dreamed possible. But alongside that mission, a personal life had flourished. One with room for quiet dinners, weekends away, and a partnership that had deepened with each passing month. "Our place," she'd said, and the phrase no longer felt foreign on her tongue. The house they'd purchased together 6 months ago, a modern structure overlooking the bay with space for both his workshop and her home office, had quickly become more of a home than any place she'd lived since childhood. Balance, Sophia thought, as she climbed into the waiting helicopter. Not perfect balance, There were still weeks when work consumed her, still times when Jake's expanding business required his full attention, but a sustainable balance built on understanding, communication, and the certainty that they were both committed to making it work. It hadn't been without challenges. The media had enjoyed a brief frenzy when the notoriously private CEO of Revitech had been photographed hand-in-hand with an unidentified man at a charity gala. Jake had weathered the sudden scrutiny with characteristic grace, though he'd drawn the line at accompanying Sophia to a tech industry awards ceremony where reporters would be specifically watching for him. "I'll support you in any way I can," he'd told her. "But I don't need to be in the spotlight. That's your world, not mine." And Sophia had understood, just as Jake understood when quarterly board meetings or production crises required her full attention. They'd found their rhythm, separate lives that intersected with increasing frequency, professional identities that remained distinct while personal lives intertwined. As the helicopter lifted off, giving Sophia a bird's-eye view of the massive facility she'd built, she felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Not just professional pride, though that was certainly present, but a deeper contentment that came from knowing she'd finally achieved what had once seemed impossible. A life that accommodated both her ambition and her heart. The executive helicopter gleamed in the late afternoon sun, its sleek lines and custom paint job, Revitech blue with the company logo on the tail, marking it as something special. Sophia approached the hangar where it waited, having changed from her formal business attire into more comfortable clothes. Designer jeans and a simple blouse that Jake had once mentioned brought out the gold flecks in her eyes. Jake was already there, clipboard in hand as he conversed with a technician beside the aircraft. He'd also changed, back in his element with worn jeans and a Desert Valley Airfield polo shirt. The contrast between this Jake and the suited version from the morning ceremony made Sophia smile. Both were authentic. Both were him. But this version, relaxed, competent, in his natural environment, was the one she'd fallen in love with. He looked up as she approached, a smile breaking across his features. "There she is. Come to inspect your new toy." "I thought that was your job," Sophia replied, moving to stand beside him. Jake shrugged. "Preliminary inspection checks out. I'd say she's ready for a test flight." He glanced at Sophia, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Care to join me?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Now? We have dinner plans." "Slight change of plans," Jake said, patting the helicopter's gleaming flank. "Dinner with a view. If you're game?" Curiosity piqued, Sophia studied his face. "What are you up to, Daniels?" "Nothing nefarious," Jake assured her, eyes dancing with humor. "Just thought we might celebrate your big day somewhere special." "And where might that be?" Sophia asked, already knowing she'd agree regardless of the answer. Jake tapped his nose. "That's the surprise part. You'll have to trust me." "Always," Sophia replied, the word carrying more weight than the casual exchange might suggest. 20 minutes later, they were airborne, the Revitech complex falling away beneath them as Jake piloted the helicopter westward. Sophia sat in the co-pilot seat, enjoying the rare opportunity to be a passenger while Jake took control. "You know," she observed, "when I approved the purchase of an executive helicopter, I didn't expect my first flight would be a mystery dinner date." Jake grinned, adjusting their heading slightly. "Perks of dating the company's chief mechanic. I get privileged access." "Is that what you are?" "The company's chief mechanic?" Sophia teased. "Among other things," Jake replied, reaching across to squeeze her hand briefly before returning his attention to the controls. As they flew, the desert landscape gradually gave way to more mountainous terrain, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the valleys below. Sophia found herself relaxing into the comfortable leather seat, the stresses of the day's ceremonies fading with each mile that passed beneath them. "You did amazing today," Jake said after a comfortable silence. "The speech, the facility tour, everything. You should be proud." "Thank you," Sophia replied, genuine gratitude in her voice. "It's been a long road to get here." "Worth it, though?" Sophia considered the question, gazing out at the landscape sliding past. "Yes," she said finally. "Definitely worth it. All of it." Jake smiled, understanding the layers in her answer. Not just the professional accomplishment, but the personal journey as well. The past year had transformed them both in unexpected ways. Sophia had learned to make room in her meticulously planned life for spontaneity and emotion, while Jake had expanded his vision beyond Desert Valley, building a thriving business with operations in 3 states. "Where exactly are we going?" Sophia asked, as the helicopter banked slightly, heading toward a familiar mountain range. "Patience, Ms. Reeves," Jake teased. "Some things can't be controlled or scheduled." "I've been learning that lesson for about a year now," Sophia replied dryly. Jake laughed, the sound warming her even through the aviation headsets they wore. "And you've been an excellent student. Most of the time." As they continued westward, Sophia gradually realized their destination, the Grand Canyon, where they'd spent that perfect day together a year ago. The understanding brought a smile to her face, touched by Jake's sentimentality. "Anniversary dinner?" she asked, nodding toward the canyon coming into view on the horizon. Jake glanced at her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Something like that." The sun was beginning its descent as they approached the canyon, painting the layered rock in deepening shades of red and gold. Jake guided the helicopter along the rim before banking toward a small plateau, the same secluded spot where they'd landed the Cirrus that day. "You remembered," Sophia said softly as the plateau came into view. "Every detail," Jake confirmed, focusing on the landing with professional precision. The helicopter settled gently onto the flat expanse, its rotors slowly winding down as Jake completed the shutdown sequence. When he finally removed his headset, Sophia did the same, the sudden silence enveloping them like a blanket. "So," Sophia said, turning to face him, "dinner with a view?" Jake nodded toward the rear compartment. "Special delivery from Rose's, including—" "Don't tell me," Sophia interrupted with a laugh. "Green chili burgers?" "Got it in one," Jake confirmed, his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Some things are worth traveling for." They exited the helicopter, and Jake retrieved a picnic basket and blanket from the storage compartment. Together, they walked to the edge of the plateau, where the Grand Canyon spread before them in all its vast, ancient glory. "It's still breathtaking," Sophia murmured, taking in the panoramic view. "No matter how many times I see it." Jake spread the blanket on a smooth section of rock, then began unpacking the basket. Insulated containers keeping the famous burgers warm, a bottle of champagne, 2 plastic flutes, and slices of Rose's apple pie, carefully wrapped for transport. "Not quite as elegant as your corporate events," Jake acknowledged, gesturing to their makeshift picnic. "But the view makes up for it." "It's perfect," Sophia assured him, kicking off her shoes and settling onto the blanket. "Honestly, after a day of corporate formality, this is exactly what I needed." They ate as the sun continued its descent, painting the canyon in ever-changing hues of orange and purple. Conversation flowed easily between them, Jake updating Sophia on his sister's new job, Sophia sharing amusing moments from the investor tour that afternoon. "I still can't believe Harrison fainted during the battery demonstration," Jake laughed, pouring them each more champagne. "Isn't he on the board of an energy company?" "On the financial side," Sophia clarified. "I don't think he'd actually seen a quantum dot matrix up close before. The brightness surprised him. Still, not the reaction you want from a major investor." "He recovered admirably," Sophia said, "and committed to another $10 million in the next funding round, so I'd call it a successful fainting spell." As they finished their meal, the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the eastern sky. Jake gathered the remnants of their dinner, packing everything neatly back into the basket before joining Sophia at the very edge of the plateau. "Thank you for this," she said, leaning against his shoulder. "It's been the perfect end to a perfect day." Jake's arm slipped around her waist, holding her close. "It's not quite over yet," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Something in his tone made Sophia look up, studying his profile in the fading light. "What else did you have planned?" Jake turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. His expression had shifted, a mixture of tenderness and nervousness that Sophia rarely saw on his normally confident features. "Sophia," he began, his voice slightly unsteady, "this past year has been extraordinary. You're extraordinary." Sophia felt her heartbeat quicken, a suspicion forming about where this conversation might be heading. "When my plane gets to cruising altitude," Jake continued, "I usually set it on autopilot. Maintain heading, maintain altitude, stay the course. It's efficient. Predictable?" He paused, squeezing her hands gently. "But the most amazing views, the most breathtaking experiences happen when you change course. When you take a risk and go somewhere you hadn't planned." He released one of her hands, reaching into his pocket. "You were my unexpected course change, Sophia. The most beautiful detour I could have imagined." As he dropped to one knee on the canyon rim, the setting sun casting a golden glow around them, Sophia felt her breath catch in her throat. Jake held up a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning ring, a simple but elegant diamond in a platinum setting. "I'm not asking you to change who you are," Jake said, his blue eyes steady on hers despite the vulnerability in his voice. "I love who you are. Brilliant, driven, passionate about your work. I'm just asking if you might want a co-pilot for the journey, someone to share the view with through whatever turbulence or clear skies lie ahead." He took a deep breath. "Sophia Reeves, will you marry me?" Time seemed to suspend itself as Sophia looked down at this man, this wonderful, unexpected man who had crashed into her carefully ordered life and changed everything. A year ago, such a question would have sent her into a panic, calculating risks and obstacles and complications. Now, she found only certainty waiting for her. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and sure despite the tears gathering in her eyes. "Absolutely yes." Joy bloomed across Jake's features as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to gather her into his arms. Their kiss was tender at first, then deepening with the promise of their shared future. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Sophia looked down at the ring now adorning her hand, tangible proof of the journey they'd undertaken together. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I had some help," Jake admitted. "Your assistant Matthew is surprisingly knowledgeable about jewelry." Sophia laughed, not entirely surprised. Matthew had become Jake's ally over the past year, helping coordinate their often complicated schedules with diplomatic discretion. "So he knew about this? The proposal?" Jake nodded. "He helped arrange some of the logistics. Said it was the most enjoyable project he'd worked on in years." Sophia made a mental note to give her invaluable assistant a substantial bonus. "And Rose? I'm guessing she was in on it too, providing our dinner?" "Rose has been planning our wedding menu since our third date," Jake confessed with a grin. "She'll be thrilled to finally put it into action." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the canyon rim, they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the vast desert sky. The world below might be complex and demanding, full of board meetings and production schedules, maintenance contracts and investor relations, but here, in this moment, everything was beautifully, perfectly simple. "So," Jake said finally, his arm warm around her waist, "any thoughts on timing? Location? Guest list?" Sophia tilted her head, pretending to consider. "Well, as it happens, I have an opening in my schedule next June, and I know a place with an excellent view." She gestured toward the canyon spread before them. Jake laughed, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Next June it is. I'll put it on the calendar." "And maybe," Sophia added, turning in his arms to face him, "we could arrive in style. A certain custom jet, perhaps." "The one with the hydraulic system I rebuilt?" Jake suggested, eyes dancing with shared memory. "The very one," Sophia confirmed. "Seems fitting, don't you think? To return to where it all began." Jake's expression softened, his hands framing her face with gentle reverence. "I think it's perfect. A perfect landing after an unexpected journey." As night settled fully over the canyon, wrapping them in starlight and shared dreams, Sophia Reeves, CEO, visionary, and now fiancée, felt the final piece of her life's puzzle click into place. Not according to plan, not as she'd imagined, but infinitely better for all its beautiful, messy unexpectedness. Sometimes, she reflected, as Jake's lips found hers once more, the most amazing journeys began with emergency landings in the most unlikely of places.